Chairman of this auspicious occasion, respected Dean of Students, Professor Rosina Tremantin, Chief Executive of National Youth Authority, Mr. Osman Ayerga, student leaders here present, ladies and gentlemen, and not the least, to also acknowledge Mr. Cecil Perez Lamte, Ohineba Kuma, and the entire team of the horses and stables for putting together this important program. This afternoon, it is my distinct honor and high privilege to stand before you as your guest speaker at this Empower Vault Summit 2026 on the theme, Fueling Purpose, Shaping Leaders, Entrepreneurship. I bring you warm greetings from the mighty Minority Caucus of Parliament. When the theme at Horses and Stables wrote to invite me, one sentence in their letter struck me, and I quote, "I had demonstrated how business-minded pragmatism and public service can work together," end quote. This statement resonated with me because I've always believed that these two worlds should not be viewed as opposites. Besides, business teaches us to think in terms of efficiency, innovation, value, and results. Public service, on the other hand, demands that we think beyond ourselves, place the broader interest at the center of what we do. When these two principles come together, they produce something truly powerful. Ideas that are not only ambitious, but practical and also capable of delivering results. Chair of this occasion, respected Dean, student leaders, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps it is this reason that makes a platform like this so important. It creates a space for us to challenge the artificial boundaries between enterprise and public service, between ambition and responsibility, and between creating value and creating impacts. In all fairness, the question is not whether business and public service can work together, but rather how much more we can achieve when we do and can do. Horses and Stable, together with the Student Representative Council here at Legon, by their own letter describes this summit as a platform meant to give young Ghanaians clarity of purpose, strong personal values, and practical tools for leadership, and to put young people in a room with people who have actually built, scaled, and sustained something, several of whom are here today. That is a serious ambition, and it is against this that I want to commend Mr. Cecil Perez Lamte and his friend Ohineba Kuma and the entire team, as well as the SRC leadership, for organizing this important program. At a time when many of you, upon graduation, are looking for opportunities in public service, this program, to me, is an eye-opener, beginning to prepare your minds to identify your own potentials and be yourself creating opportunity for yourselves in the private sector. As a center right believer who believes in private enterprise, who believes that an individual can create wealth, that wealth will bring wealth to the nation, I welcome this dream, this program, this initiative, and I pray that same continue on this campus. My dear students, because clarity of purpose is exactly what they promise you, I want to talk to you honestly about the country you are being asked to lead for purpose that is disconnected from the realities on the ground is no purpose at all. Permit me to share something that should concern every young person in this hall, regardless of your political party you support or whether you support any party at all. Ghana's democracy is under a kind of pressure this generation has not had to reckon with before, and I raise it not as a minority leader scoring a point, but as a lawyer who has spent my career believing the law should protect citizens but not silence them. Chair of this occasion and my dear students, the Media Foundation for West Africa reports that this country has recorded more arrests under this administration in relation to free speech and political commentary than in the entire 8-year tenure of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Sit with that for a moment. And I also want to be clear about something before I go further, because I don't want to be misunderstood. I do not condone politics of insult. I repeat, I do not condone politics of insult. I never have and never will I. Public debate, however, in this country deserves more than dignity than what is currently happening. But if there is any government in Ghana's Fourth Republic that has benefited from the politics of insult, it is this current one. They mastered it in opposition. They built entire platforms on it. It helped carry them back into office. And now, having ridden the wave to power, the very same conduct aimed the other way is being treated as crime. At the heart of this is the deliberate weaponization of laws that were not designed for what they are now being used for. Section 76 of the Electronic Communication Act, Act 775, addresses the publication or transmission of false information through electronic means. Sections 207 and 208 of the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, address offensive conduct conducive to breaches of the peace and publication of false news. These are the laws weaponized to silence political opponents, punish satire, and criminalize political commentary that this government finds uncomfortable. I can mention a few. David Esando, organizer, Aguna West constituency of MPP, reportedly made statement that, quote, "Doomsaw is back," end quote, and was picked up by the Bureau of National Investigation. Baba Amando was also picked up in relation to his public statements. Camila Al-Hassan, a 43-year-old TikToker, was arrested and sentenced to a full year in prison with hard labor for repeating that which was already in public domain. And it is not only free speech that is being met with this kind of force. Even the exercise of the right to bail is being subjected to onerous and unnecessary harsh conditions, which has even received condemnation from members of the government. Bail is now being used to guarantee that people suffer in the time being. Mr. Chairman, my dear students, I am raising all these on this platform built for young Ghanaians because you, more than any other group in this country, will live with whatever precedent is being set right now. A law that can silence a party organizer today can silence a final year student tomorrow. An onerous and harsh bail condition that continually detain a communications aide today can also do same to a small business owner. There is a man named Martin Niemola, whose story I believe we should remember. He was a German Lutheran pastor and a former naval officer who initially supported the rise of the Nazi regime in the 1930s. But when the regime's repression extended to the churches and its authoritarian character became undeniable, Nyomola became one of its outspoken critics. For his opposition, he was arrested and spent final years of the Nazi era in concentration camps. After the Second World War, reflecting on how ordinary Germans had watched, tolerated, and remained silent on the Nazi regime consolidated its power, Nyomola offered a warning that has endured across generations. He said, quote, "First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me," end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students, I am not standing here telling you that Ghana in 2026 is Germany in the 1930s. Far from that. That would be dishonest. And dishonesty is not something I intend to bring into this great hall of the University of Ghana. But Nyomola was not really describing Germany alone. He was describing a pattern of human hearts and the very human habit of staying silent about an injustice because it has not yet reached our own door. If you tell yourself that David Sando's arrest is not your business because you are not in his party, or that Miracle Abuaji's bail condition is not your business because you will never be investigated by Iyoko, you are practicing exactly the silence Nyomola warned about. The next name on that list could belong to any one of you. So before I speak to you about purpose, about leadership, and about the business I hope you would build, I ask you to carry this concern with you today. A country cannot fuel purpose in its young people while narrowing the space in which they are allowed to speak. It cannot shape leaders while teaching them a mere innocent political commentary can end in a cell. Democracy and enterprise are not separate conversations. They rise and fall together because both depend on the same thing: a citizen's confidence that they can act, speak, and build without fear. With that said, let me turn to the moment we are actually in and the one this summit was built to address. The moment and the weight of numbers. Chair, students, members of the academia, an entire generation is standing on ground far less certain, at a scale none of us can afford to look away from. Let me show you exactly what that ground looks like in numbers. First, we have been told that Africa is today the youngest continent on earth. According to the African Development Bank, our continent is home to nearly 420 million young people between the ages of 15 and 35, a figure projected to double to over 830 million by the middle of this century. The International Labour Organization's 2024 report on global youth employment goes further. By 2050, 1 in every 3 young people walking this earth will be African. That ought to fill us with pride. However, my dear students, the same African Development Bank gives us the sobering half of that picture. Of Africa's nearly 420 million young people today, 1 in 3 are unemployed and have simply stopped looking. Another 1 in 3 are in jobs so insecure they cannot plan a future around them. And 1 in 6 holds anything resembling stable. Every year, an estimated 10 to 12 million young Africans walk into the labor market for the first time. Every year, our continent's economies create only a few million jobs to receive them. Do the arithmetic. That is gap, year after year, of several million young people for whom there is, quite simply, no foundation to stand on. Now let us bring this home. According to the 2021 Population and Housing Census, conducted by the Ghana Statistical Service, our population stood at 30.8 million, an increase of over 6 million in a single decade. And the service projects that the figure will double across 50 million before 2050. Our population today, about 35% are children under 15, and a further 38% fall within the 15 to 35 years bracket that our own national youth policy defines as quote, youth, end quote. Add those two figures together, and you will find that more than 7 in every 10 Ghanaians alive today are under the age of 35. And what does the labor market offer? Young people account for 7 out of every 10 unemployed persons in this country. An estimated over 300,000 students graduate from universities across Ghana every year. Only about 10%, if not less, are able to secure jobs within the first year after national service. Chairman and dear students, sadly, that is the funnel every student in this hall is likely working toward. Therefore, my dear students, a population this young is not by itself a problem. It is an opportunity, perhaps the single greatest opportunity any government on this continent could ask for. That is why this moment demands that we begin asking ourselves what we can create, what problems we can solve, and what value we can bring to our communities and our country. So let us turn from the size of the challenge to the substance of the answer. Because the answer to everything I have just described begins with a single word, purpose. Now let us think about fueling the purpose. Chairman and dear students, if there is one thing this generation must not lose sight of, it is purpose. We live in a world that constantly tells us what to pursue: money, status, titles, recognition, and success. But before we ask ourselves what we want to achieve, we must first ask a more fundamental question. Why? Why do I want what I want? What is worth giving my time, my talent, and my energy to? And who will ultimately benefit from the life I choose to build? Purpose is what gives direction to ambition. Purpose is a compass that tells us not only where we want to go, but why the journey is worth taking. Therefore, my dear student, purpose is not necessarily something you discover all at once. It is often uncovered through the things that stir your curiosity, the problems that concern you, the experiences that shape you, and the needs around you that you cannot ignore. Sometimes, purpose begins with a question, sometimes with frustrations, sometimes with a simple realization that someone ought to do something about this. The important thing is to pay attention. And once you begin to understand your purpose, you begin to see the world differently. You stop asking, what can I get? and start asking, what can I give? You stop seeing your education only as qualification and begin to see it as a tool. You stop seeing your talent just as personal advantages and begin to see them as resources that can be used to solve problems and create value. And when purpose is clear, the challenges ahead do not disappear, but they become easier to face. And that is where our conversation must now move. Because a generation with purpose must also become a generation capable of leading. If purpose gives us the direction, leadership gives us the responsibility to take others with us. So, having spoken about how we fuel purpose, let me now turn to the next question. How do we shape the leaders that this movement demands? I will define leadership in my own way. I come here today as someone who, not very long ago, was exactly where you are, a young student, full of conviction, searching for ways to contribute to my country I love. I recall vividly my time at the University of Cape Coast, when at a career fair, the Venerable J.H. Mensah, who was a minority leader, visited some students, and I was part of those students. He spoke with eloquence and clarity. He inspired me with the way he communicated on complex issues. Some I never understood, just as I believe you will not understand what I'm saying today. But at the time, I had no idea that I would one day lead parliament as a majority leader and later become a minority leader. And that is the same sense of possibility I feel when I look at you today in your desperation, in your state of confusion, trying to manage the complex issues, wondering whether this is a mere speech or whether you should absorb it and practicalize. Amongst you, I can say with confidence, are seated future presidents, parliamentarians, ministers of state, lecturers, entrepreneurs, and leaders in many different fields. You may not see it, but your journey today may be the beginning of something far greater than you can imagine. And let me pause to caution my beautiful ladies amongst you. The young men, they may appear not to have a future. Don't disown them now, else one day you regret. And you, the young men, don't abuse them and don't use them and dump them for other people. Work together, share dreams together, and grow together. You'll be proud of your achievements someday. My dear student, for me, leadership is the most used and least understood word in public life. Everyone who holds an office calls himself or herself a leader. Every politician who wins a seat calls himself or herself a leader. But the word itself, in its truest meaning, is far more demanding, far more rare than anything the title alone can describe. Leadership, as I understand it, at its most fundamental, is the willingness to put the needs of others before your own, to carry a burden you did not create, to give your best years to a cause that may not reward you in your own lifetime, and still believe with everything in you that the work is worth doing. Therefore, my dear students and distinguished guests, permit me to share with you my journey to leadership. My story did not begin in parliament or in the comfort of a political office. Like many young people seated here and across our country, It began in a humble beginning, shaped by responsibility at an early age and the daily realities of survival and hope. Many of you may have seen a photograph of me as a young boy selling bread with a plaster wrapped around my leg. That is not an AI. It is a picture of me, a 12-year-old. To many, it may just be an image. To me, it is a reminder that circumstances do not define destiny. It is a reminder that even in moments of difficulty, a young person can carry dignity, ambition, and determination to rise. So whenever I look at that picture, I see resilience, I see determination, I see a young person who understood the very early life that difficult circumstances must never become an excuse to surrender one's dreams. Those early experiences taught me lessons that have never left me. They are lessons that continue to shape my understanding of leadership even today. And most importantly, it taught me that every young person, regardless of background, deserved the opportunity to participate meaningfully in shaping society. It was these convictions that led me into public service at a young age as an assembly member. I had the privilege of serving 2 terms and subsequently as a presiding member of the Futu municipality. But I need to give you the full story so that you will know where I am coming from, so that you can also be inspired. It was one Saturday evening in August. School had reopened. I was studying law at the University of Buckingham. I was preparing that night to fly back to school. 2 of my primary school mates accosted me. They told me that in Winneba, the one who won the primaries had stepped down, and our classmates were clamoring for me. I said, but I'm not into politics. I'm a final year student. Why do they want me? They told me our classmates wanted me to lead them. I tried to resist, but there were calls all over. My mom was involved. My auntie was involved, and I had to succumb. I eventually suspended my education to serve them. I won my primaries. A day to the filing, the elderly in Winneba stood up against me. They said they won't allow a 24, 25-year-old man to be a member of parliament. Perhaps to them, I was too young to lead the constituency. So I had to step down, rather painfully. That night at the castle, I wept. I didn't understand why my friends had stopped me and had pushed me into politics, and I was finally denied. I never planned to get into politics. My plan was to become a lawyer, run my business, become a judge, and retire in a quiet, private life and enjoy my wealth as a businessman. My friends pushed me into leadership. Having gotten into it, I now pursued a career in public life. In 2008, this time I contested the primaries. I lost by a single vote. 44 delegates voted. I got 22. My opponent also had 22. But he had a casting vote. So he would never vote for me. He voted for himself. So final result, 23-22. I lost. Again, I wept. My party lost. We were in opposition. I picked up the pieces and I reorganized the party. Eventually in 2010, I became the candidate. And in 2012, I won the election. I worked hard. I worked hard in Parliament. In 2016, my party won. But when my party came into office in 2017, and all the positions were shared, I was never recognized. I was a Bob No rank. I was denying deputy ministerial appointments. I was denying leadership in Parliament, and even at committee level, my juniors who had just come into Parliament were offered chairpersons and vice chairpersons. So even at committee level, I was a junior at the committee level. But I went back to the constituency. I worked hard. I won again. This time, without asking, I was made a deputy majority leader. And later made a majority leader. And when the party lost, the party unanimously settled on me to lead the mighty minority. I said this to encourage you, that in all situations, give time some time, and know that in the fullness of time, all things shall align. My dear students, life may have its own complications. You may be coming from broken homes. You may be here as an orphan. You may be here as somebody who has no parents, who does not even know where he comes from. But there's a future for you. You never can tell. The Lord Almighty, who created all of us, has a purpose for us. No matter your difficulty, no matter your struggles, do not give up. I started my life, my business life, with motorbikes. I started with a courier company and took a loan. I ran into serious repayment difficulties. I went into the bauxite business, took loans from the bank. I made it, and I lost some money. I tried agro-textile and agrochemicals. I lost money, and I got up and picked up the pieces. At a point, I was owing about 5 banks together: Standard Chartered Bank, Unibank, Barclays Bank, Access Bank, NIB, a total of over $35 million. But I never gave up. I stood firm, and I picked up the pieces. I understood the complexities of life. I started new businesses, and I managed to pay every single debt. Today, I say with pride that I don't owe a single bank. I've paid all my loans. Back in the day, when some of the banks were pursuing me, I live at Abelenkpe. Mawako was not far from me. The banks would come to Mawako and they would paste the 5A all the way to my residence. They were selling my property. One morning, my wife was carrying my kids to school, and the bailiff accosted my car and took away my car. My kids had to go in taxi. This was the life I went through. So, I tell you today, don't envy any successful man today. You never know what that successful person has gone through. And don't let setbacks bring fear or create fear in you. You must dare to challenge life. Don't give up. Persevere and have your God with you. You would make it. I am proud of my success, and I celebrate my success. I won't hide my success because I worked for it. Work for yours and you will achieve yours. I believe that we can transform our country if those of us in public service combine effort with those in private sector. I come to public sector with private sector ideology. I understand entrepreneurship, and I always encourage that let the two coexist. We create the enabling environment in the public sector, for the private sector, we create the incentives, and by so doing, and this would help the private sector to grow. Ladies and gentlemen and dear students, it is not government that can create jobs. The government can make promises, but the jobs can only be created by the private sector. If the government decides to create jobs, government machinery will crash and democracy will fail. I therefore urge the government to create the enabling environment, put in the incentive, the one job, three shifts, the 24-hour economy under this reset can only be realized if the private sector is properly retooled, re-enabled, and given the necessary incentive. I stand to offer my support, not just by being in opposition, but be constructive in my criticism. And I believe that with that, our country can make a difference. My dear students, I've taken you through my own life experience. I've talked to you about resilience, your setbacks, which require your preparation. Without preparation, setbacks will break you down. You must be willing to be fair. Be resilient enough to keep going. Be prepared enough to recognize your opportunity and committed enough to use your leadership to serve others. Entrepreneurship itself will come with a lot of setbacks. People will disappoint you. Let me share with you a story. A time came when I was working for Guinness. At one point, my trailers were among those trailers that were hauling for Guinness. I employed some drivers. And these drivers, somebody told them that the company has paid it bank loan. So what they did was that they would load the Guinness, and then when they go somewhere, they go and sell, pocket the money, and they will report that it was an accident. And at the end of the month, Guinness will deduct all those losses from my revenue and pay me less the losses. Then when the same month ends, these workers will demand their salary. And then they will demand their SNITs and their taxes to be paid. And when there are delays, they will report me to SNIT. I don't know whether any of you has experienced weekend courts. In Ghana, weekend court is a SNIT court. Entrepreneurs know that court. The number of times that I have to be at the counter back. Because when you fail to pay your SNIT contribution as an entrepreneur, it is a criminal offense. So weekends that by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, if I don't get the money and the judge rises, I'll go to jail. They have to be searching for money. I've gone through all of it. Those of you who want to be entrepreneurs, your employees, they will deal with you. Be prepared for all of that. They will see you, they think that you are rich. They are your donkeys. They won't accept it, so they must also be rich. They will think that you are using them, so they must also be rich all of a sudden. They will bring you down. But in all of this, I tell you, be prepared. Take them through the necessary orientation. Let them understand why they must be of service, and let them understand the corporate rules and make it. And I can assure you that with all setbacks, you will survive. I do not want you to take this opportunity for granted. One of the things that has affected our nation is our attitude. All of us think that anything coming from the government must be abused. So we get a loan from government, we don't pay. During President Kufuor's time, he set up the Golden Age for Business initiative, where many businesses got loans from the banks. Many did not pay. President Mills came, he continued. President Mahama came, he continued. President Akufo-Addo came, he continued. And I believe President Mahama, chapter 2, I don't hope for chapter 3. President Mahama, chapter 2, He's still giving loans. And people believe that they are entitled. I voted for the party. It is my party. So they won't pay. I remember that when our party lost elections, there were some people who took Maslock loan, about 400,000. When Maslock pursued them, they said MP will pay. And I had to pay. What if I didn't have the money? What I'm telling you, my dear student, is that it is the state that will create the enabling environment for you. If you get the opportunity, utilize it. Don't say because it is your party that is in power. Like NDC is in power today. You are a 10 student. And because you are a 10 member, you are giving some 1 million cedi. You are giving some 2 million cedis to start your business. You go around and say, we voted for it. So we lack that sense of responsibility. That is the problem we have as a country. Many people who say they want to be entrepreneurs abuse opportunities. People who take government contract, they take mobilization, and they don't go to site. People are paid by the government, and they don't go back to site. They do shoddy jobs. And you know what we politicians do? Instead of paying attention to the problem, we sit in parliament and we talk politics, and people go scot-free. The time has come for you, the youth, to bring us to order and straighten the system to make it a better place for all of you. If this platform is creating opportunity for you, I want you to be responsible leaders tomorrow. I took a loan from NIB. I paid. I didn't say it was a state bank, so I won't pay. I took a loan from Unibank. I struggled. I paid. But there are many who get the opportunity, they don't want to pay. If you don't pay your loan, how would others get the opportunity? So because of our own behavior, our character, our attitude, it is now even difficult for the banks to give loans. So they put in a lot of conditions. Go and bring this document. Go and bring property. Go and bring this. And we turn around and complain. Let us be the new generation that would have a new attitude. Because if you have a new attitude, you create the opportunity for yourself. Let me conclude with this charge. My dear students, this campus, Legon, is our premier university. Legon, University of Ghana, is the mother of all tertiary institutions in Ghana. It is the pride of tertiary education in Ghana. I must say you are privileged. I was not privileged to be part of you here on Legon campus. You are privileged. So if today this opportunity has been created, I want you to make a mark. I'll be ready to provide a helping hand. And I want you to look at today with the weight of the numbers, a generation larger than any before, standing at the intersection of enormous challenges and extraordinary possibilities. Today I have spoken about purpose, leadership, entrepreneurship, and the world you face, a digital world. But beneath all this is one simple truth. The future of our country will ultimately be shaped by what this generation chooses to do with the opportunities before it. Therefore, do not wait for the perfect conditions before you begin. Do not wait until you have all the money, all the connections, all the experience, or all the certainty. Start with what you have. Learn what you know and what you do not even know. Build what you can. Fail if you must, but learn from it. And when you succeed, do not forget those who are still trying to find their way. Your purpose should not end with you. It should create possibilities for others. I leave you with this. Fuel your purpose until it becomes impossible to ignore. Develop yourselves until you are ready to carry responsibility. And have the courage to build something that outlives you. Do not measure your life only by the position you eventually occupy, but by the problems you solve, the people you empower, and the opportunities you create. Because one day, someday, someone will sit where you are sitting today. They will look at your generation and ask what you did when you had the opportunity. Let your answer be that you did not merely inherit the future, you helped build it. Thank you so much for your kind audience. God bless you. God bless University of Ghana. God bless our homeland Ghana and make it great and strong.